How do we teach people about volunteer service and the importance of community? We do it through service clubs specifically designed for young people. Let's find out how this works from two dynamic young people who are leaders in these clubs, next on Lakeshore Focus. Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Service to our communities is very important. Being able to work and get along with others is also critical. Most of us learn these lessons, or not, when we are young. Most secondary and university level schools are requiring students to perform some level of service as part of their curriculum. Kiwanis International recognized this need many years ago and formed two organizations, Circle K for colleges and Key Club for high schools. To talk with us about the impact of these groups and one similar are two young leaders, Rylee Briel, who is the governor for Indiana Key Clubs, and Tyler Brown, who is a former lieutenant governor for Circle K Lake Region, which is Northwest Indiana and South Bend. Did I get that right for both of you?
Yes.
You guys have very impressive titles to be a governor and the lieutenant governor. You sound like you're like as important as the governor of the state or the lieutenant governor. Does it feel that way?
Sometimes.
So it does feel pretty important?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rylee, you're at the high school level of this. You're a senior in high school, right? What high school now?
Valparaiso High School.
Okay. Have you been there your whole life?
Yes.
In Valpo? All right. And Rylee, you're going to Purdue Northwest, right?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Okay. I said Rylee, didn't I? I meant to call you by Tyler. So you've been, and you're a junior now?
I'm now a junior, yes.
Okay. So how long have you been involved in Circle K?
Circle K since actually before I started attending at Purdue Northwest. I became a board member at Purdue Northwest while I was still a senior in high school at Valpo High.
Okay. So as I mentioned to you guys before the show started, I want to talk about service and community and young people getting involved, because sometimes we see some young people just aren't involved in anything and others are real service oriented. You two seem to understand the importance of service and community. Where did you learn that?
Well, it started for me when I was younger. I was involved in the 4-H organization in Porter County, and through my club we just did all kinds of community service, from decorating bookmarks, decorating Meals on Wheels bags for that organization. And so it started when I was in kindergarten. And
so what was your thing in 4-H?
I do a lot of things in 4-H.
Did you do projects or animals?
Projects.
Okay.
Yes.
So what were your favorite projects?
Weather, geology, and forestry are probably my favorites.
You're the science kind. Okay, that's good. So, but what got you even into 4-H? I mean, so why was that important to you?
Well, my father was in 4-H when he was growing up, and so when he heard that we had a club in our community, he just signed us all up, and I had no clue what it was at first. And as I was aging, I started to understand more and more about community service, but at first I just understood it as something that I had to go to on the weekends, and something that I was kind of forced to be involved with, but very grateful to be involved with it now.
So a lot of people listening would say, okay, well, she got into it because her parents urged her to and so forth. But one of the things I know is kids don't stay in stuff they don't like. So what did you like about it, or why did you stay in it?
Primarily the people at first, but as I aged, I started to understand what really community service was, and how much it helped our community, and it gave me a really rewarding feeling to visit a nursing home and play games with the elderly, and it really made me feel comfortable to be around them.
We're going to have to talk about this aging thing, because you definitely haven't aged yet, I don't think. But I know when you're young, you also say, as I grew older, it's like, you're not older either. So, but it's all right. We'll talk about it after the show. How about same kind of questions for you, Tyler? So what got you involved in kind of service kind of things? When did that start for you?
Well, in my junior year of high school at Valpo High, I took a lot of dual credit classes and AP, and I got pretty overwhelmed. I wasn't involved in anything, and I was lacking socially. So at the beginning of my senior year, I joined pretty much every club that I could find, and it started off just trying to find things to do, but I soon grew connections to certain clubs by being in them, and one of which was Key Club, and that's how I was entered into the Kiwanis family.
Well, this is interesting because you kind of did it from an early age, and you had a discovery as you aged, right? As you were
Yes.
older, your junior year, you're like, what happened that made you think I need to be doing some things?
It kind of came to needing a balance. I was really overwhelmed academically, and I would just kind of go to school, do all my homework and classwork, and then come home and not have anything to do. So I needed a buffer kind of in between my classes and my home life, and that found its way in the shape of clubs and student activities.
Did somebody encourage you to do that, or did you just look around and go, I have a hole here in my life, and I need to fill this hole with something?
A little bit of both. My mom always encouraged me to take all the opportunities that came my way. It was mostly just looking at the flyers on the wall and stuff like that, seeing what interested me and going to the meetings.
So mom was telling you this your whole life, do some things, but you didn't listen to her until you're 16 or 17 years old, right?
More or less, yeah.
Usually it works the opposite way. Usually kids listen to their parents early and then they quit listening to them in high school. So you figured it out though. How come you figured it out and others haven't? And you guys see those students, right? The ones who are completely doing nothing. So why are they doing nothing, Rylee?
Sometimes I feel like they just need that social connection, and sometimes they're not really reached out to. And so I feel like if we do reach out to them, and whenever we have days where we sit outside the cafeteria and hand out flyers, if we call someone's name and ask them about themselves, and then kind of form that connection, possibly they'd be involved, feel like they should be involved with our club. But sometimes it's that lack of friends in a club.
What was keeping you from getting involved in those earlier days in high school? Why weren't you doing things?
So I think my mom always told me I should take all the opportunities that came my way, but she never forced me to do anything. She never made me join a club. She never made me join a sport, and she let me kind of find my own way, which I think a lot of students need that. And so I would eventually learn things myself, like I have a hole here, I should fill this with student clubs, things like that. So that's just what I did. I learned my own lessons, more or less.
So you like to learn the hard way? Is that what
Yes.
you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, well, first of all, people heard probably both of you went to Valpo High School, so is Valparaiso the mecca of leadership development? How did the two leaders in the state and the region end up coming right out of the same high school? How'd that happen?
Personally, I think it was mostly our club advisor. Usually, a lot of the times, key clubs throughout the state, the strength of them depends on who you have leading them as an adult, because if they don't have that passionate advisor, that fun advisor, if you will, they don't really do as well. And so Debbie Schaefer, a wonderful woman, my advisor, she really got me involved and gave me that motivation to reach for the stars, if you will.
So the person who's selected for governor doesn't always come out of Valpo, right?
No.
How many times has that happened before?
Once.
Just once, so
Yes.
you're the second.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. So it usually rotates around the state. How'd you get picked for that?
Well, we have what's called a district leadership convention, which is where the members, key clubbers of the state, come together once a year, and they elect the higher officials, executive board. And so I gave a couple speeches, campaigned a little.
You had to run for office, right?
I did, yes.
Okay. So how many students are in Key Club in the state, even roughly?
Over 7,000.
Over 7,000.
Yes.
Wow. How many are in Circle K? Well, see, your region, how many universities did you kind of work with?
I resided over 6.
Over 6 universities.
Yep.
Okay, so you worked with, about how many members did you have in those 6?
It's really tough to estimate because we track our membership based on who pays dues at the beginning of the year, but just because you pay dues doesn't mean you stay till the end of the year. There's 13,000 Circle K members across the world, and we're a pretty strong district in Indiana. I think it would probably be a few hundred that I resided over in my region.
Okay. So how did you get picked?
Same thing at our district convention. I applied for lieutenant governor. My best friend at the time was the previous year's lieutenant governor, and he kind of pushed me to run for the position. And I campaigned a little bit, and I went to House of Delegates and ran.
So since you've both campaigned and both won, has this given you a taste of the political process and made you think maybe one day I would want to be in elected office? Or I don't want to do this ever again? Which is it?
I would like to, but at the same time, I don't really think I have that background education on politics. I think I'll stick with the Kiwanis family kind of leadership roles.
Okay. How about you?
A little bit. I actually, at our international convention last week, I was running for an international position, and it required a lot more campaigning and a lot more insight on politics. And I would say it was a lot of fun, and I gained a lot from it, but it wasn't necessarily my niche. So I've thought about running for maybe a senator role when the time came, but I don't know. I kind of like where I'm at.
So you didn't get all the votes you wanted?
I did not.
So, but that's kind of an interesting experience, really it is. I do have to confess that running for the president of my class, my freshman year in high school, I lost the election, and I vowed after that I would never lose another election, which I never did, but at a certain point I quit running for office too. So, so you guys are running, were you both the head of the Key Club at Valpo at different times?
No.
You weren't.
No.
And you weren't. You were just a member.
I served as lieutenant governor for 2 years, but yes, and treasurer and vice president for 2 of those years as well. But not president, no.
But you've always been in leadership roles, and it sounds like you.
I actually did not. I was only a member at Valpo High, but like I said, before my senior year at Valpo ended, I registered as the BEEP bulletin editor, electronic publisher for Purdue North Central at the time.
Okay. So what have you learned in your experience, of any of your experience doing service and working in the community? What kind of lessons have you learned about people, about the community while you were doing these things? What's some of your takeaways, the wisdom you've gained as you've aged?
That's kind of tough because there's so much that I don't want to overwhelm you with all the things that I've learned, but
Don't worry, you won't.
definitely a lot of life skills. First of all, communication, responsibility. If you sign up for something, you have to follow through and make sure you attend that event. Otherwise, you're letting people down. And about the community, I've learned amazing things. All of the different diverse amount of people we have in the region and throughout the state, really. And that everyone that we do help out values it so much and are so grateful for it. And that's another thing that makes me feel very humbled to be a part of our community, that people appreciate what we do.
So you've learned some things about yourself. You've learned some things about the community that you might not have learned before by having this exposure. What have you learned about other people?
Other people.
Yeah. What lessons have you? Hard or easy? What have you learned about other people?
Well, sometimes things are difficult. Volunteering is difficult for people because they aren't as grateful, and it's sometimes difficult to work with those kinds of people. But overall, it's important to continue serving the community because it's worth the while.
So you've learned that people are a little challenging. You've probably, again, learned some skills of how to engage people, because you talked about that a little bit before, about you see people sitting around the cafeteria or whatever, you try to figure out ways to engage them. Tyler, what have you learned about the community? Now, you told me earlier that you came from another part of the country. You're from?
I'm from Rhode Island originally.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're a transplant.
I am.
Kind of. Have you taken root here?
I have. One thing that I'd like to know is that Circle K is a little bit more abroad than Key Club is. Key Club definitely works more with the local area, but at Circle K, I've held events in Muncie, in Lafayette, and Indianapolis. I've traveled a lot, and something I've learned is that you have to have adaptability because every community has different needs, and as a leader, every event or situation, you have different requirements for how you need to lead. And also, each one of those communities, you have to have that intrinsic, I want to fix this, even if I am a transplant. This community is important to the neighboring communities, and that translates to the health of the whole state. And
So you got to kind of own it, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned about other people? Same question I asked Rylee. What have you learned about other people? The good, the bad, the ugly?
Okay, I think the most obvious would be you can't force people to want to volunteer. You can't force people to be a good leader. You can't. They have to learn their own lessons often. You can only give them the tools and resources along the way. One thing is that I've learned the gratitude of others. Through volunteering, you meet a lot of people, and those people often need your help, like severely. And once you are in a situation where you've helped them, whether it's like Habitat for Humanity and you build a house for them, they are eternally grateful. And once you really feel that for the first time, it's hard to stop volunteering.
I know it's a real stretch, but imagine that I'm your age, okay? It's a stretch. How would you approach me if I'm one of these students in your school that is not engaged in anything, doesn't seem to be aware of what's going on in the community? How would you approach me, either one of you, to try to get me engaged in anything or try to get me to be involved in service or volunteer? Who wants to take a shot at it?
Well, I'm a firm believer that people don't come to your meetings or your events because you have free stuff or because your event's really cool. They come for the personal connection that you make initially. One of the biggest problems with our organization is recruitment and retention, which is pretty much every organization has that problem. But once again, firm believer, if you make a personal connection immediately, they will continue to come back.
So how would you make that connection with me?
Mostly just one-on-one, just sitting down and being like, hey, I guess it would depend how I know you weren't doing anything. Like if I personally knew you, I'd probably reach out and be like, hey, I know your interests are such and such. There's a club on campus that you might like that I could expose them to. That would expose them to the student organizations as a whole. And then once that connection had been made, I'd offer them my organization, Circle K, as kind of a grab bag, because there's a lot that Circle K offers.
So good piece of advice. You would try to connect them to something they would have some immediate interest in, rather than say, why don't you just come be part of my group? I don't even know who you are or anything about you, but you ought to come and join my group, which is not a really good message. So I like the fact that you're going to try to get to know me a little bit more. How would you approach it?
Well, enthusiasm. I feel that if you are getting your message across about whatever club it is, Key Club in this case, and explain the things that they can get out of it, and you explain that with enthusiasm and you share your passion with it, if they see that you're extremely passionate about this organization, it could rub off on them. And so that's usually my go-to, is approach them with a smile and make friendly, form that connection, if you will, learn a bit about them, share a bit about yourself, and hopefully they'll come back.
So that's another great approach, because people are drawn to that kind of excitement and energy and so forth. So you guys got two good approaches, and you probably both use them different times. But tell me this, if you walk the hall, or you're in a classroom, how do you identify that person that you think, I'm going to approach that person, or I'm going to learn about this person? How do you pick the ones that you approach, that you want to get to know, or you want to share your passion with?
Well, Circle K is an organization that foremost offers personal growth, and more often than not, the people that need the organization are the people that are the most detached from student organizations. So if someone was like sitting by themselves, like with their headphones in, not talking to anyone, they would be my main goal, because they would have the most to grow from if they had joined.
That'd be your target.
Yeah.
Who'd be your target? Because you talked about outside the cafeteria, or in the cafeteria, you're walking around. who are you drawn to, or why do you pick that person?
Well, I really couldn't agree more with Ty. Usually I'll feel the need to go talk to a person that seems like they could grow from our organization the most, because we really do stress about building servant leaders. And so the individuals that don't necessarily seem like they have that leadership quality in them at that time, I'll approach them probably first. And then also on the other side of the spectrum, I like to see people that are also bubbly and very outgoing, it seems like, and kind of attract them to our organization, because it helps to have more enthusiastic people to, again, go back and get those people that don't really seem super involved with their community at the time.
So you guys may both have great futures in sales. It sounds like you can do this pretty well. Many people are critical of young people today, or they just will make kind of negative comments, your generation doesn't know what it's doing, they don't pay attention, they're lazy, whatever. It's kind of been done for centuries the same way. What would you say, how would you describe your peers today, people you're at the university with, people you're in high school with? What are kids like today that you're around?
I'd say a lot of them are outgoing, and they're really taking the initiative in their community and in their schoolwork and in sports athletics. But at the same time, there is that connotation about millennials and the Z generation, and that they're not necessarily going out and they're all about technology and being over on their phones and such, instead of engaging with others in their community. So I'd see it either way, if you will, that sometimes they're just not really involved with others, and really the things that adults may think that youth need to know.
So a little of it's true and some of it's not so true. So what would you say about your generation?
I'd say foremost we're accountable. Going to Purdue Northwest, there's a lot of alternative students. That's one of the problems we have with recruitment, is that most of the students on campus are working jobs with families they support, and they're also taking 15 plus credit hours for the semester. I've seen students that have a plethora of responsibilities that they seem to manage effortlessly, and I think it's pretty great.
So a hardworking group.
Yeah.
So we're down to just the last few seconds. So I know you guys were recently at a convention in San Antonio. Just one quick takeaway from that. I mean, something that just, man, I learned this at this convention. What'd you learn?
That we have some of the greatest leaders that I could ever imagine across the world. That, like, we are the leaders here, but there's leaders even cooler than us out across in California and Hawaii. And
Your same age?
Yep.
Your peers are great. How about you? What was one thing you learned?
Key Club is so large and spans all across the world, and that meeting the variety and diverse group of people was amazing, because it spans more than just Indiana kids or Illinois kids. That it's all the way in Jamaica and India and China, and it's amazing to know that this service is being done all throughout the globe.
Well, I admire both of your openness. I admire your motivation to do this, and I think you guys are some great leaders for our future, and thanks for being on the show with us.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Volunteering has a noble heritage in America. We have a volunteer military. You voluntarily give blood. Our fires are fought by volunteer firefighters. And the rest of us volunteer at church, in the food pantry, on the ball field, and at Scouts. We learn about it early when the kindergarten teacher asks, who would like to volunteer and lead us to the cafeteria? The answer is me, pick me. We also are taught a subtle difference early in life. It's called voluntold. You are asked to volunteer, but it's apparent that you are being told to do it. True volunteering is an act of free will. You make a decision on your own, unfettered, no real push. Or do you? I think there are 3 levels of volunteering as we consider the motivation for doing it. The lowest or primary level is purely about me. This will strengthen my resume, help me get into college. It looks good. I get to be with these people, or that special guy, or that girl I like. It's required for me to get a good grade or a promotion. I'm helping out. Somebody had to do it. My reward will be in heaven. All are pretty lame because they are just about me. The second level is because it feels good. In volunteering, you don't get paid in cash, but at this level, you get paid in emotional capital. When you offer yourself, do the work, or reflect on your experience, you have a warm feeling. Your heart overflows. You are proud. It touched you. There can also be thoughts of, I am appreciated, was rewarded and recognized, received an award. Even the belief of, if I volunteer to do this, I will learn something, refine a skill, gain experience, or understand. I'm not discounting this level of motivation. In fact, I believe that good feelings can be a blessing or reward. We need to discern when our motivation is driven by seeking the reward or when we do it with no expectation of a blessing. The third and highest level is difficult to attain. Most of us struggle to have these motivations. I do it because it needs to be done. I am called to do this. No one else will, so I volunteer. This will change someone's life. My faith instructs me to. I do it for a higher purpose. The distinction for these is no expectation or hope for reward. All three levels are important because someone or something is being helped by our volunteering. It would be nice to be at level 3 all the time, but we are usually at the other 2. It doesn't mean we should stop trying for the top level. Volunteer because it's the right thing to do. As always, I want to hear from you. We welcome your comments and thoughts about the content of this program or what is happening in our communities. You can email us at focus@lakeshorepublicmedia.org or reach us on our website, both listed on your screen. Tell your friends you watch Lakeshore PBS. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.